Next on the Dragon Ship, we're going to be talking about
Hey, welcome everybody. How you doing? This is the Dragon Ship. I'm RP Thor. Let me bring up the panel. It looks like we had a little glitch with our video, but that's okay. Let me bring everybody up.
So what are we talking about?
We are talking about something pretty fantastic today. Gentlemen, we are talking about Poon for dishes. Who would have thought about it? If you traded just a little bit of scrubbing on the dishes, unlimited amounts of the trim would become instantly available to you if you were in a long-term relationship, because good Lord, Oprah said so. So did all the other talking heads. It was on Good Morning America. If I could just trade a little bit of this sexual currency for doing some chores around the house, because good Lord knows she was so busy she couldn't get the chores done. And you don't do enough chores around the house, Glenn. You know
what? That triggers me. It's a trigger. I heard that in therapy way too many times when I was married. All right, let's not go down that road. I burn brooms and mops now. I set them on fire when I see them.
You did. Now, I don't know about you guys, but, you know, as a grown adult man, I knew how to clean my own toilet. But if I could go out there and make $200 an hour, that's much better time spent, right? But for some reason that fails to meet the sensationalism of modern American women, whereas us masculine men don't do enough chores. And apparently taking out the trash and, you know, scrubbing some floors and having a little, you know, I like when the guys put on that apron, you know, where you think they're going to do the barbecue, but then you don't. You actually go in that kitchen, right, and chop some stuff up. So this whole thing today, we're going to talk about chore play. Glenn, you did a video on chore play, and it was pretty darn funny. I don't have it queued up for some reason when I selected
it.
Grab it? Up. You want to grab that while we're chatting?
I'll grab it. Go ahead.
I did find something pretty interesting that I might bring up later, and I found an Urban Dictionary definition of chore play, and I don't know where I found this thing, but it was the best definition I'd ever seen because it didn't fit in with the modern political schema on these things, which is chore play. I'll read it while Glenn's getting that video ready. When a beta male listens to the advice of others, usually of a feminine persuasion, that he should take up more household duties, chores, and menial labor from his wife in an effort to help his failing marriage, likely plagued by a dead bedroom, what is expected is to implicitly understand the virtue of testosterone is that sexual desire cannot be negotiated. His efforts to put in currency in the form of service will not buy him sex or respect from his woman, despite the harmonious reassurances from women of the opposite. So you can say whatever you would, you know, about the chores, you know, it doesn't really get her going, so to speak. But you certainly wouldn't imagine that from some of the videos we saw, huh, Glenn?
Yeah.
So what is chore play?
Oh God, it is the most god-awful thing that was ever mentioned, and like the most unbiblical thing I've ever heard of in my life. But let's just, yeah, here you guys go.
We're going to start this Friday with a little. Have you heard of chore play?
Chore play. It's doing chores in order to entice your partner into having a little fun time. Know what I mean?
You know what it means? Yeah. So we're asking because Kristen Bell says that her husband, Dax Shepard, has been working on his chore play. By the way, we didn't know chore play.
We don't even know what this is.
We didn't know it was a thing.
But apparently it is.
Yeah.
Because they're doing it. So what it means is Dax Shepard was outside doing some work. And he was doing it so that Kristen would look out the window and see him.
What is he doing? Is he power washing?
He's much more muscular than I thought.
Yeah, me too.
Wow.
Look at that tank. Okay, now I'm okay with that tank top, actually.
Chore play. Chore play. Let me just explain to you guys this about chore play. If you find yourself in a situation or your wife is not giving you the ass, if forever you think that picking up a mop or vacuuming the fucking living room is going to get her pussy wet, the answer is no, dummy. I don't care what these broads tell you. And they try to act dumb like they've never heard of chore play before. These old birds have probably invented the bitch, okay? Let me just tell you that. Chore play is not going to get you anything. You know what chore play makes sex turned into? See, sex is supposed to be something that you desire to do. Sex is supposed to be something that you just, God, you want to just bang the fuck out of your wife, and your wife just wants to bang the fuck out of you. It's a desire. When you do chore play, you are taking something that's supposed to be a desire and you turn it into a transaction. Okay? Now, let me ask you this. Like, if you had to pay for sex, would you pay your wife for it? Or would you go get the supermodel? I'm just saying, if you're going to go get a prostitute, you might as well make sure she's fine as hell. But no, seriously, chore play, all chore play does is it turns something that's a desire into a transaction. So when she sees you doing the dishes, she's going to be like, oh God, he's doing the dishes. This motherfucker wants me to suck his dick later. I know it. Okay, then it just ruins the whole thing. You know what I'm saying? Like, a lot of people don't even realize that they see the flags beforehand. You know, here's the biggest flag when you know you are starting you're on the decline in your relationship. You guys need to compare the way she sucks your dick from the first time she sucked your dick. Remember how enthusiastic it was, how slobbery she was, and how, oh my God, she was all over it, and she looked like she was just going to suck the life out of you, right? You remember that? Okay, remember that one, and then ask her to suck your dick now and see how she does it. Because she ain't doing it that slobbery, and she ain't doing it that enthusiastically. If she's doing a half-ass, blowjob, then you know what? I could guarantee you something's down. Something's wrong, and it ain't going to be good for you guys. Here's the biggest problem with marriages is that typically it's the woman who falls out of desire, who loses desire first. Women tend to lose that honeymoon phase a lot quicker than men.
Excellent. Thank you for that video, Glenn.
If you guys want to watch the rest of it, it's on my channel. You know, I didn't want to waste the rest of the time doing that.
That was really good. You know what? You really started it off well. Now, I just read an article that really kicked this thing off a couple of weeks ago. I don't know, Paul, if you've seen it, or if Ryan, if you've seen it, but Kristen Bell is like this famous actress, and she commented in Today, which is a web news organization called Today, and she shared that chore play is the key to a happy marriage. This was done last June. Yeah, and she shared some videos of her husband is some famous guy named Dax Shepard. I'm not familiar with it, but it's a little different. She said it was dubbed chore play. And I thought it was interesting. What she dictated as chores wasn't what we're all used to hearing, which is doing the dishes and all that stuff. He was out and he was essentially working in the yard, chopping wood, all that sort of stuff. So I want to chop it up. Hey, welcome, Ryan Stone. Appreciate you. You probably understand chore play better than anybody, having been a moderator on the Married Red Pill. I mean, this has been around forever. Do more chores, get more BJs, right?
Yeah, this is a buffer. Honestly, every time a girl says that, it's because they don't feel attraction. They feel guilty because they know they're supposed to sleep with their husband, and so they come up with these excuses. And it's just throwing spaghetti against the wall. Hey, maybe if you did more chores, I'd be more comfortable and we'd have sex more. All you need to know is that any guy who's ever tried it, it's like a dick pic. Everybody thinks it works. It's never worked.
And so let's bring up why it doesn't work. Why doesn't it work, Phil?
What's going on, man? I think that first off, the dynamic's upside down, man, because the simple fact is I don't do dishes. I just fuck.
Yeah, okay. All right.
No, seriously though. I just want you guys to understand that I think that when you're in a situation like that with a woman, it's been done for quite some time. It's time to move along. Now if you're married to that woman, an open conversation about it's probably needs to be had. But I think that working or getting like pussy credits or whatever you want to call them for chores around the house is definitely not the way to go about doing it.
Right. So, but this meme keeps coming up, and I don't know if it's really a meme, but this whole thing about, I mean, obviously there's people that are married and in long-term relationships. That's what we're talking about here, because this is never an issue when you first start dating and you're in that heady environment of the honeymoon phase. And I can actually never, having been married in 30 years, having any household chores become an issue ever at all. Of course, there was never really much of a dead bedroom either. So this whole thing, is this just hype? But it seems like all the young women today that you see on Fresh and Fit, cooking and cleaning, it's out of the question. They don't even know how to make a sandwich, as expressed on some of these podcasts where you see they're in the big cities. I don't cook. I don't do any of these things. Is this really real? Is there a lot of women that feel this way, that that is something that is the cure? Is this just popular, kind of like telling men that they have to be emotionally available?
You know what I found out? I've been doing some like studying on like feminism and like the causes of it, right? What they're trying to do systematically and over time. And literally we make the comment of like, you know, feminism has masculinized women and feminized men. And we say that, but we don't realize how much it's not just the attitude, it's actually the duties and the things that they do. More women don't know how to fucking cook today than ever before. You can't even get them to make you a peanut butter and jelly sandwich right. And it's like, why are they not, they don't understand that. Why? Because they're not taught that. They're taught that that's beneath them. They're taught like that's not, you know, appropriate for them. That's serving a man. And what's the quote say? Like, never do anything for the express pleasure of a man. You know, Ryan, isn't that what it is?
Yeah. Rolo puts that one.
Yeah.
It's
And
like
it's
the
like
feminist argument. And
so they're like, why would I learn how to cook good? Because I'm not going to cook for no man. If anything, he's going to cook for me. That their mindset has changed.
One thing I hear a lot too is women say, "Oh, he just wants a maid. He just wants a maid." Which is complete nonsense. They don't want to do their natural duties. One thing I think too, a lot of this chore play stuff goes back to is the love languages. Came out in like the early 90s. It's like the chore play Bible. Men, they start becoming unattractive, like Ryan says. And so women lose attraction. They don't necessarily know why either. So they read books like the love languages and think, yeah, I could use more help around the house. Maybe that'll do it. And then, guys are sitting there because their wives aren't screwing them anymore. So they start Google searching, well, how do I get my wife to fuck me? And so then, they come up with the love language book. They read that and they go, oh, I'm just not speaking my wife's love language, which is to do more chores, which is complete hogwash. It comes down to covert contracts, nice guy behavior, guys trying to do this one thing so they can get sex, right? So they're trying to negotiate. It just doesn't work.
Yeah, I think it's definitely covered that a lot of ladies use for sure. That the whole love language thing. It reminds me of what that Brene Brown did. We talked about, where she came up with the fact that vulnerability meant something that it actually didn't, and then created a whole series of books about male vulnerability, and then went around to all of the universities and TED Talks about vulnerable. And now, lo and behold, I cannot look at anything that's broadcast without hearing some man say, I need to be vulnerable, or I expressed my vulnerability, or I'm emotionally available. And this whole chore play thing seems to me that it falls right in that category of meaninglessness. What was I watching the other day? Oh, I was watching Myron. I was catching a really quick clip of Myron. Is it Cian or Sheehan Reynolds? Is that her name? The one that does the grilling, where they do the little date situation. And
Sean, is it Sean? Is it pronounced Sean?
Sean or Sheehan? I don't know.
It's pronounced Sean.
Not really too sure. But here she is, a little bit of a little bit of past that certain barrier that we, about this high that we call the wall. And he's saying something about, having the girls, make, clean up for him, helping him out, being a benefit or adding to him was very important in a relationship. Was that, she was more of a benefit. It really was an imperative to him. And her immediate response is, why don't you just hire a PA, personal assistance, meaning, which, I find that kind of interesting because she talked a little bit about that vulnerable, emotionally available crap that's totally meaningless. I call it sign language, or that guy Kevin Sam has called it sign language, is kind of meaningless today. But yeah, the whole chore play thing I find super interesting. Let's hear from some of the older guys that's been around for a bit. Mark or Wraith, you guys want to comment a little bit about your experience throughout the decades? Similar to mine, I would imagine, because you guys have all been in long-term relationships, and you hear someone like on the Good Morning or the Today Show talking about how amazing this communication is when men and women, or women in particular, watch their man doing some household chores.
Well, a chore play, I've never done that. I think it's just another trend, another somewhat ridiculous trend that somebody's putting out there to, I don't know, to negotiate real desire. You just really can't negotiate that. She either wants to be with you or she doesn't. You either want to be with her or you don't. You're not going to be able to, well, I'll do this if you do that. I mean, you can do that and you may have good sex, but it's still not going to be the same thing as her actually desiring you and wanting to be with you. I don't see it. But if you're taking advice from women, what's that like, trying to catch a fish by talking to the fish, how they want to be caught? It's the same thing. A lot of times women think these things, well, yeah, I'd really appreciate my man more if he did this. Yeah, that sounds, to a woman, that sounds good. But how many times do women not really know what makes them attracted to a man? So I think in their mind, they're thinking, yeah, this is a good idea, and I need some help around the house. And to back up on, you guys were talking about, one of you guys said something about cooking. Yeah, to ask a woman or tell you want a woman to cook or to clean, they see that as subservient. I mean, and it's actually just part of what they do. And you as a man, it's no different than you as a man going out and, what do they want to call you? You could call yourself, well, you just want a workhorse. You want a man to support you. You just want a workhorse. But men don't look at it like that. But the modern women look at it like, well, you want somebody to cook and clean? I watched a show 30 years ago where a man was up on stage, I think on Oprah, and he said he wanted a traditional wife that cooked and cleaned. And he just got ranted almost off the stage for that back then. And it's even more so now. So I don't see how that does anything except demean the man by him seeking her approval that maybe she's going to honor him or bless him with something. It seems ridiculous to me.
Yeah, I sense that as well. Wraith, you've had some experience with long-term relationships. What's your thoughts on this whole propensity to say chore play is something that's really important in order to get sexual favors in the bedroom if it's waning in your relationship? I think you got more problems if that's what you're bringing up.
Yeah, I don't necessarily think it's important. I find myself that if I clean the house, I clean it better than she does. And then she gets depressed because she can't maintain the standard of cleanliness that I would like in my life. So it's never worked. I never did it in this sense that I was trying to get something for it. But I did do it as an example of the standard of cleanliness and the standard of living that I wanted. But it wasn't really chore play. It was teaching her how to clean the house, just like teaching her how to cook and those kind of things. So, like I said, I think men, like Paul was saying, it's a lot of covert contracts, and women communicate on a covert level. So it's trying to communicate them with the way that we think they want to be communicated with, and not the way that men communicate with them. So,
yeah, for sure. Ryan, you've done a lot of work around covert contracts. I bet you have something to add to that. I mean, I've seen some of your stuff, amazing stuff, by the way, and thank you for joining us.
Oh, well, thank you very much. Covert contracts, it's like, I love them because it's like one of the first things that I show guys, and it's one of the last things that they finally internalize. It's simple enough. A covert contract is, I do something, I expect my woman to reciprocate in a certain way, but I don't want to say anything about it because you're afraid to take responsibility for your own wants and desires or whatever reasons. There's the whole thing you can get into. But that's the problem, is that the girls, either because they don't know, they can't read your mind, won't do what you want, or they can tell they're being very crudely manipulated and sabotage it on purpose because girls don't want that responsibility. And so what happens then is you build a cycle where you get resentful because they don't do it. And so you make stronger covert contracts, and they fail those on purpose or by accident too. And it keeps going until you're eventually at the chore play side of things. And one of the greatest examples I love is a guy, Wine More Please. He's been around longer than me. He's the best guy you've never heard of, where he says, imagine just doing this with zero expectations. And guys are like, well, I wouldn't, like, for anything. I'd do the dishes because she asked me to. Would you be willing to do them if you got nothing out of the deal? Like, just for the sake of doing it. And most guys obviously say no. So it's like, well, don't do them. Kids, and it's for your kids too. Like a kid, your daughter crashes the car and you want to buy her a new one, but because of there was a good example of this where the deal the guy had was, you got to spend more time with me, during the weekends. And she was like, no, because he did that as like trying to buy his daughter's love. So if you can't give this stuff without any expectations of reciprocity, then don't give it, because you're not in that position yet. And it's completely detached from sex. So yeah, the logistics of running a household, who does the dishes, who does this, obviously, like I think it was Wraith was talking about, where he does things to his standard on his timeline. And if she wants more than that, then she can do the extra. And if she wants to be in his life, then she has to meet that expectation. It's great. I think the big problem then with the love language crowd is they associate that with the intimacy side of relationships, and they're completely parallel tracks,
Yeah.
But yeah, once you start understanding the concept of a covert contract, and once you start dealing with them, you start to see that separation for what it is, and guys generally make better choices.
Yeah, and you can kind of use it to your advantage, right?
What's that?
You can use those covert contracts to your advantage.
Well, by killing them. You can use cancer to your advantage, I'm sure.
I had to say, like, when I came across covert contracts because of Ryan, and I didn't realize how many that I had set up in my previous marriage. That's why I was so upset about a lot of things, is these stupid covert contracts that we think about in our head. Like, we think that somehow that if we do this, they will come. It's like, it's a proverb, like, and it's like, no, there's no proverb for it. How they're supposed to know anything unless you vocalize it. And you're right. It's like the guy is too scared to actually say something that he wants. And it's almost a form of manipulation. If I do this nice deed, maybe she will just realize that this is what she should do to show me she's grateful for the thing that I just did. So it's like, you're doing it not even to do it because you want to be nice. You're doing it because you have an intention to get something out of it. And it's like, you're not even doing it for the right reason.
So in other words, you're acting like a woman.
Yeah, exactly. You're just being a bitch.
That's the way they communicate. Everything is, everything has something behind it, and you have to figure out what that is. And there's nothing wrong with that, as long as you understand that. And you have to stay in your frame and pull them towards what you want, as opposed to you trying to figure out what they want and doing it for them and not being successful at it.
Right. I got a question for the panel. Like, when that happens, right, Thor, when that moment happens where she like suggests, helping out more, like, why don't we just initially just realize that something is off at this point? Why do guys typically don't even see that as a red flag? Like, they just kind of like, oh yeah, you know what? Maybe if I do this, I'll just get some more ass. But they don't ever stop and realize, like, wait a minute, something has changed now.
Most guys, I was gonna say most guys are complacent once they've been around a girl long enough. They stop trying. They stop doing what they did from the beginning. They go into I don't have to try anymore mode. I've already got her. I've got that ring on the finger. I'm going to crack open a beer and not pay attention anymore. And I think that's largely what the big problem is.
Yeah, for sure. No doubt about it. If they're asking you, if they're giving you that conversation about, equity in the relationship, there's other crap going on. It's not fair. You're not doing your part. There's other issues going on for sure. I never really ran into that, but one thing that was always mentioned to me was my wife always found it super attractive when I was working in the yard, maybe climbing the trees, trimming the trees, doing all the outside stuff. So if you consider that chores, I always considered it, just stuff you do as a man. You take care of your shit. It was just taking care of shit that there's no way in hell she would ever do. I'd fix the cars, change out oil, whatever it is, fix the house, trim the trees, do this, do that. And I enjoyed actually just being busy and taking care of business. And she found that quite attractive. Just one of the things that I always like, she kept a really spotless and organized house. And the way I kind of kept her doing that was just, definitely to spike her emotions when she was doing something. If she was mopping, I'd take the take the mop from her and then go grab a wash rag or something, and I dip it in there and into the solution, and I'd wring it out, and then I'd hand it to her and says, "This will really turn me on if you use this instead." Yeah, but then I got to get on my knees, and then she'd look at me puzzled and go, "Oh, okay, get out of here." Right? Just little encouragements like that. But yeah, I never ran into it, so I find it such a big deal that this is such a conversation, and I find it something. And you know, when we were having that discussion about vulnerability, that woman, Brene Brown, that had gone around and talked about, one of her big comments too, and I couldn't find it, but was men need to be vulnerable to do the household chores. You guys ever hear that? I mean, that she was going around with a TED Talk. Men had to be open up and be vulnerable enough to do the household chores. Good Lord, what planet are we on? Can you men not wipe your own butt? You know, I mean, but this was the conversation, and she got a lot of praise from that. It was on all the daily talk shows for many years, and she was quite successful. I mean, look at the definition of vulnerability and how it's changed now. You know,
these fucking broads, man.
Yeah, fucking broads now, right?
Well, it's so funny too, because they do talk about vulnerability and being more emotionally available and whatever, but it's a huge trap, because when you start doing that kind of thing, you're acting like a woman.
Yeah,
and women don't typically want to date other women unless they're lesbians. Shout out to the lesbians out there.
It's like, do they even know? Like, they don't even know what they want by saying that. Like, they say, we want you to be more emotionally available. We want you to be vulnerable. And then you do. And then they're like, they dry up. It's like the Sahara Desert down there.
Well, it goes back to the chore play too, though. A lot of women don't know what they're attracted to. Mark said that. They're raised with the same programming that we are, right? So they're raised to go, I should think it's sexy when a guy's mopping. You know, it should be sexy when a guy is emotionally available, but then when guys do that, they're just like, I don't know why, but I'm not attracted to this. It's like, because they don't know what they want. They're told to think a certain way, so they think that way.
Yeah,
but that's not what they respond to.
No, you're absolutely right. I mean, if their girlfriends say chore play's the thing, or if your man's not emotional, they all jump on that bandwagon. That's why I always say, when you're getting into a long-term relationship, make sure she's the influencer and not the influenced. And you know, there's something interesting though. Women, they like that security in a relationship, right? And if you're doing the manly stuff around the house, that goes a long way to her doing her part. I'm just going to say it. Look what Coco has to say. We know Coco. She's familiar with a couple of us on the show, and she's real familiar with Glenn right there. But I've heard this repeated time and time again in good long-term relationships. You know, it really gets her going to see Glenn out there, you know, getting a little dirt on his hands and doing what men do. I'm sure that at some level, Ryan could explain to us that it makes her feel very secure and protected. I bet that has quite a bit to do with it.
Are you asking me or just suggesting?
Oh, no, I mean, yeah, I'm asking a comment on that when a woman says stuff like that. I think that's more genuine than her asking for the household chores.
This is going to be the most misogynist thing I say today, but I really don't care about the mouth noises. Girls don't know what they want. They don't know what they're saying. Chances are, if I do something and it works, it'll have nothing to do with them giving me advice. So they can talk, whatever. It's the actions, man. I just focus on the actions. If we have a great, healthy sex life and I got spare time to do dishes, yeah, fine. I'll help out with the dishes. That's great. Or I'll do them myself. I'm a grown man. I know how to iron.
Yeah,
but if things aren't going well and she starts complaining about something or the other thing, I'm like, it's obviously not about that. Like, how many? Like, let me just ask you this: how often have you gotten in a fight or argument with your girl, and then you realize she hasn't had lunch, or she's tired, or it's like a day or two before Shark Week, and then when you solve one of those problems, give her a nap, give her some food, and I don't know what you do for PMS, just give her another box of tampons. I don't know. That all these problems and all this argument goes away. So, do you really even need to have a conversation at that point when you can just obviously look things and just do it yourself? Probably not.
Yeah.
You can just let them walk out the door and wait 5 minutes and they'll come back and act like nothing happened. Yep. I don't know if you've ever experienced that or not. As long as you don't. Yeah.
I love those though, because then you just, you don't rub it in their face. You just kind of let it go and
just
move on.
Go on with the program.
I will say this is like a side thing. Never expect an apology. I've seen so many guys.
Absolutely not.
Well, they're never wrong. Why would they apologize?
I don't even care. Like, what does an apology do? It's just to make me feel better. It's to take accountability. Dude, I've been watching my prime minister apologize for 3 years, not change one goddamn thing.
Yeah, and apology is really not taking accountability, you know. It's just like when you're speaking to somebody and then you do, well, you know, I really agree with you, Ryan, but that that means everything I say after that is I don't agree with you. You know?
Like, why even engage in the theater? Just come back. You're acting good. I'm acting good. Everybody's happy. Okay. Do we want magic words on top of this? It's like, I'll be fine.
Let's just move
and
along.
when they do apologize, they apologize not for their actions. They apologize for the way you took it. I'm sorry that you took what I said to mean something else. It's like they're not even apologizing for shit. They're apologizing for you.
They're fogging.
Oh man, I had the best apology. It wasn't from a girl. It was from my brother when I was about 10 years old. Right, it's the best apology. And I had my dad. Me and my brother were fighting. Right, and I ended up spraying Lysol on his face. Because he had started a fight and I did this or did that, and who knows, he did something to me. But my dad was disciplining us, you know. And he wanted my brother to apologize to me, right? So the best apology I've ever heard was when my dad said, Arn, say you're sorry to Thor. And he looked up kind of crying. I think he's like 8 years old. And he sat there and he said, Thor, I'm sorry, you're such an asshole. And then my dad started laughing and everybody started laughing. So it's kind of like that. I've seen apologies come from women like that, where just like you said, Glenn, they're apologizing that you took it that way, you know.
You know what? Men could learn a little bit about how women never apologize. Guys apologize too much for stuff that they don't have any control over, and it really makes them come across as weak too, you know, especially in a relationship dynamic. So guys really should work on not apologizing all the time too.
Yeah, well, I think there's more to it than
it gives off the vibe that you're wrong and that you're deferring, like that acknowledgement. Like when you're constantly apologizing, even when you're not, like guys will apologize for shit that they're not even needing to apologize for. And when they do that constantly, they keep, in a way, they're deferring. They're always telling them, you see, I'm right. And you're acknowledging, yes, you're right. You're more right than I am. Then I should defer my decision making to you. It kind of gives them that thought process. Like, you can't trust what you say because she's always right.
You know, I wanted to say something about that apology thing right there is, you know, if you do make an error, own it and just move on. The thing is I agree 100%. A lot of guys, they just apologize for no reason. I mean, you can I walk through grocery stores and people just by me. Oh, I'm sorry. Grown men. And I'm like, dude, you have nothing to apologize for. It's amazing to me.
It is
that people do that. I mean, I don't even understand why. You know, the thing is I'm just minding my own business. But see, that's the thing in relationships. In my experience with my girl, I don't apologize for anything unless I mangle something. If I mangle it, then I own it and then I fix it and I move on and we're done. It's not even talked about. It's not even thought about again. It doesn't happen again.
Phil, do I need to get the disclaimer out again?
Dude, I'm going to keep it G-rated.
It's fine.
Hey, if you make a mistake, you just say, I was wrong, and you move on from there. You don't let them bring it up over and over again. I mean, if you make a mistake as a man, you admit you made a mistake, but you're making the mistakes because you're the one that's supposed to be leading and making the decisions that they don't want to make because they don't want to be accountable for them. My daughter just told me the other day, 16 years old. She said, I don't like to be wrong. She doesn't, you know, she's from the mouth, from her mouth, a woman, a girl, she'll tell you the same thing. They don't like to be wrong. They don't like to be accountable.
Yeah. Guys will also apologize because they're afraid of their woman's emotions, you know, and they want to end the argument. They want to make her feel happy. So they will just basically fall into her frame by doing that.
Hey, Paul. Yeah. Hey, Paul, wouldn't you say that they're already emotional hostages in that situation then?
Yeah.
Oh, 100%.
If they're afraid, there you go.
So they're not they don't operate in their frame if they're afraid if they're in that situation.
Well,
it's a clear sign that they're in her frame.
Yeah, 100%. I think what I was alluding to was he was saying that most guys are afraid of her emotions. So they're already a hostage long before you know, they call her, you call her out, she blows her stack, And then, oh, well, I can't say anything anymore. I can't hold her accountable anymore. But that's the problem, right? Is a lot of guys, they're hostages at that point in time.
Yeah.
I was just kind of teeing off of what you were saying, Paul.
Yeah, absolutely. And you'll see this a lot with the whole where do you want to eat honey argument. Right?
Yeah.
Because guys will ask her where she wants to eat, get mad that she won't pick a place, but they're afraid that if they pick the place that she won't like it. They're afraid of her emotions. And it's like, dude, if the funny thing is, the cure for that is to just pick the goddamn place and
That's
tell
so
her
true.
you're welcome to join me if that's the cure. Be a man.
You know what? Like I told my kids when he was younger, you get what you get and you don't throw a fit. All right, simple as that. If we're going to go here, I asked you to suggest a place. You didn't want to suggest a place. All right, we're going here. Simple as that. Yeah. Well, I don't want to eat there. Well, too bad. What you get?
Yeah. Well, I think as men, we're more goal orientated. So when we get into a disagreement, we just want it to be done. We just want to finish it. But women like the journey. They like that drama. They would like it to continue on. Or we just want to say, okay, we'll just go here and that's it. But it's a mistake to do that because we're complying, we're supplicating to their wishes. And they don't want that, even though they will argue with us like they do want it.
Yeah.
Way too many men let women goad them into arguing with them. I don't argue with my girls.
Oh, so it's pointless. It's totally pointless to argue with women.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what is the approach?
I've done it. I know.
What's the approach, right? Like, so, you get this like scenario brought up to you. You tell your wife, like, look, I noticed we're not like, getting it on as often as we used to. Kind of want to get that back going again, And she kind of says, well, I'm so exhausted from, because she's not going to come out directly and tell you what she wants.
She'll communicate.
I'm so exhausted from the day and the kids and cleaning up the house. Like I'm just tired at the end of the day, right? So what is the remedy? Like, what do you say? Like, do you say, oh, well, I can help out with the house more because that's what a lot of guys do, or do you say, you know what, you need to put the kids to bed earlier and have better time management? Like Coco suggested that women need to have better time management.
I think guys need to look in the mirror a little bit and go, would you fuck you?
Yeah, that's actually the answer.
Exactly. Why is she acting that way? What am I doing? What am I doing or what am I not doing?
Yeah.
It's bringing this to pass.
But then again, she could be she could also be a flawed woman. And you could have your shit together. Had a good physique.
True.
You're highly desirable to other women. But she's got her own bullshit in her head.
Possibility.
That's correct.
So how like,
just throwing that out there.
You guys start dread? Will you throw some dread game in there, Thor?
I would do the early stages, and I know Ryan's got a book coming out on dread that's going to be super cool because I know where a lot of that stuff comes from. But the early stages of dread is not obvious. It's taking care of yourself, being the man that other men want to be, and it's basically dialing your shit in, much like Phil would say, "Do you want to fuck you when you look in the mirror? Are you a contextual alpha where you go? Are you doing all of those things?" It's definitely not the ultimatum that guys like to throw out, or the supplication, which is, I'll do whatever you say, honey, just tell me how to get the poon, because really the poon is about everything. And I need the poon. So I will do anything you want to get that poon. I will lick the bottom of your feet just to see possibly a little upskirt. You can't go that route because then you're a super nice guy and that turns women off terribly. I just watched an example of this on Attraction, which it's really about attraction. If they're coming in on those terms with you about doing things around the house, or you're not pulling your fair share. Let's exclude something like finances and things like that, where maybe you are screwing up. Let's just keep it to this. I just watched a show on Netflix. It was called Singles Inferno. And what it was is a bunch of upper class Korean individuals, like 4 or 5 men and 4 or 5 women, very, very high class, like top earners. They're all well six-figured, right? The girls are in their 20s. The guys might be in their 30s. And so they're extremely polite. And if you can think of a very puritanical society, the upper class South Koreans are extremely conservative. So even when they speak, they would never speak as openly as we would here. It would be considered quite offensive and inappropriate, right? So this is kind of their version of a dating show. And what's interesting to watch is extremely boring because it's nothing like drama that we would see, but you can see the attraction there. All the men are so damn nice. They are extremely polite, and they are doing all the things that we would say is super nice guy stuff. Oh, let me get that. Let me open the door. Oh. And they're bending their heads and all that sort of thing, to express how polite they are in that society. And I recommend everybody watch it, because the girls are very polite, and they acknowledge they're nice men, make good money, all that sort of stuff. But then they show up Korean bad boy. And see, they all vote on who they'd like to date. And so Korean bad boy shows up with long hair, which is not cool. He's got tattoos, which is not cool in that upper class environment. And he walks into this place with his head up and his shoulders back, locking eye contact with all the girls and the men. Even in a society that's polite like that, at the end of that episode, all 5 girls voted that they wanted to date that guy. And he's but spoke 6 or 7 words. Freaking amazing. And so it's a perfect example that this spans across cultures as standard male, human, female behavior. Now, how do you relate that to chore play? Real simply, you hold your masculine frame, and unless you're just an absolute pig hoarder, you're taking care of shit anyway. This should never come up. There's another issue if it comes up, but dread is just the fact that if you're taking care of stuff, you're desirable and you have options. And therefore, her performance is her security is dependent upon her performance. And part of that performance is doing what she needs to do to support you as the man that's going to provide for her. I think I was long-winded, but I think that's
no, that's good. Actually, you guys brought up another good point, though, is that you guys mentioned the loss of desire to a degree, right? So then it's like, if this comes up, guys, like that's a clear indicator where you might want to realize that you probably let yourself go a little bit. You're no longer, maybe you're not going to the gym as often as you used to. Maybe your diet's off. Like maybe there's something that's a good point to kind of check yourself and be like, you know what? I need to get back into what I was doing. I need to get back on my square. This is a good time it's like a warning shot. Like it's a warning sign. Like I am at the point where I'm no longer attractive enough in her eyes where she just wants to start jumping my bones like she did before. So let me start working on myself again. Is that a good sign? Like a good point to say there?
Yeah, if she's bringing it up to you,
so.
you're ready. You're ready to do so. You have to take action if she's bringing this up. There's something else going on. No, or you could take the approach that I accidentally did when I was never asked to do laundry, but I wanted to get a bunch of crap done. So I grabbed all her clothes that was in the laundry room, and I mixed them with all my clothes, and then all the clothes from my shop and the rags, and I threw them in there. And I added a little bit of everything because that's what you do, right? And then I turned it on and I washed it all together like that. I, to this day, never have to do laundry ever again.
She fired you after that. Yeah.
Oh,
I'm not allowed to.
Dude. It's like, no, it's another thing. Like, that's another way to. It's another way to do it. Like, okay, you start doing the chores, but you do it in the way that she hates it, or you do it not to her standard on purpose. Yeah. You do it on purpose, and you're like, she'd be like, no, just get out of the kitchen. Get out of the kitchen. Okay.
I will deny that was on purpose.
You could also run some car parts through the dishwasher a couple times. And oh, I thought that could go in there.
Yeah, there you go. Oh yeah, the greasier the better. That's great.
It says it cuts grease, babe.
It peels all the rubber off of it. Yeah, that's funny.
I wanted to say something. My girl, she put something in the chat. I'm gonna go ahead and put it up here real quick. And this is pretty much true. It kind of lines up. She says, "Let's face the truth. Most women are lazy and don't want to do the housework, and they use chore play as a way to get men to do it so they don't have to." That whole, I work a job too. I do this, I do that. I'm just so busy. Hurried woman syndrome, all that good stuff. And so I think filtering. Early in your relationship for the woman you want. I mean, quality women, as long as you're operating in your frame, I mean, they're 100% trainable. My girl was trainable. She knows exactly what my expectations are. And she also understands if she doesn't meet those expectations, I'm going to walk away. And that's where it's at.
Yeah, a lot of that is women naturally want men to lead. They really do. Even if they're the most staunch feminist, they are looking for a guy with a stronger masculine frame to sort of break down those barriers that they put up. And when you can lead, when you can show them that you are the leader in the relationship, like they will totally relax into their feminine. They'll totally just do the dishes, do the laundry. They won't even question it, you know?
Yeah.
So that's the thing is like, we're not, you know, a lot of men these days are raised in single mother households. You know, they go to school all day long with female teachers. We're basically all just raised by a bunch of women, and we're all taught not to be leaders anymore. You know?
Absolutely. We're all taught to negotiate. Everything should be negotiated. Everything should be. That's exactly what they're teaching everybody. No, you can't stand for your principles. No, you can't demand your way. You know, it doesn't matter if you're paying for everything. You still need to get their opinion. You need to negotiate things. And it's like, no. Leadership doesn't negotiate. Leadership leads. Leadership lays out the plan. This is the plan that we're going to execute. Now we can negotiate when we're going to execute it or how we're going to execute it, but we're going to execute this plan. You know, like those things can be negotiated, but not the plan.
Marriage by committee doesn't work.
No,
you know, like, it's. Go ahead, Paul. My apologies.
I'll make it real quick. You know, like it or not, when you're in a car, there's only one steering wheel. When you're sitting in front of the TV, there's only one remote typically. Like someone needs to take control, and really women do want men to be in that role. Whether they were raised to be feminists and think that they should be in control, they really don't want it. They just don't.
Yeah,
well, I've come to the conclusion that women don't want equality. I'm sorry, Phil, I'll let you hop in.
No, it's good. It's good.
But women don't want equality. And the reason why I say that is because they don't want equality in everything. They want equality in certain things. And I say, like, look, until they're willing to accept equality across the board, meaning equality to be accountable, equality to be responsible, equality to have to endure what men have to endure. But they don't want those things. They want the quality of having power and live in this egalitarian mindset, but they want you to still be responsible for the decisions they make.
Right.
So it's like, no. They don't want equality. Go ahead, Phil. My bad.
The reason why they don't want control is because deep down inside, they know their lives are dumpster fires when they are in control. The problem is they get with a weak guy that has no frame, has no understanding of how to operate in a relationship. Number one, number two, how to operate as a man, let alone a man of any kind of status or have his stuff together. And so they're forced to take control, and that makes them bitter. And so they get out of that relationship, get into another relationship, and she sees a guy that, you know, can lead and handle business, but she challenges that constantly, you know? And so it's getting women to understand that, you know, hey, first off, you know, if you're with a weak guy, that's your own fault because you didn't vet him properly. Number two, in a natural dynamic, men lead, women follow. There it is. You know, no matter what society tells them, that's just the facts of life. You know, in our home, you know, I basically call all the shots. It's like a business, Paul, how we do it. It's like almost like an LLC, right? I'm 51% shareholder and she's 49%. It's like I'm the judge and she's the attorney. She wants to bring some information to me. I'm going to make a decision on it. We're going to roll. And living like that, our dynamic is good. If it's anywhere else but that, it's bad. And I walk away.
Hey, Phil, didn't you just learn something about why they always fight with you, though?
What's that? Go.
Didn't you just learn it? We just talked about this.
We talk about a lot, man.
We just figured out why women always want to challenge you for your authority.
Let me hear it.
All right. So there's a scripture in Genesis.
Oh, man, not the scripture.
This is a good one.
Here we go.
I just want you guys to know it took me a week to get this out of my friggin' head, and now that's how far I've removed it from the brain, and now here it is again.
Here we go.
All right. So, Paul, like, just so you know, I have a degree in religion. That's my background. So I'm just trying to figure out, I'm like looking up, where's feminism? Is feminism in the Bible, you know? And I come across the scripture in Genesis, and it's Genesis 3:16. And this is like after Adam and Eve got caught eating the fruit and they're wearing fig leaves, right? And God, you know, is rendering his judgment on them. He already dealt with Adam. Now he's dealing with Eve. And he's like, you know, you're going to experience severe pain in childbearing, right? And the desire for your husband, but he will rule over you. But the actual Hebrew translation says this: you'll experience severe pain in childbearing. You will desire to control your husband, but he will rule over you. And it's just like, well, before that, they were in harmony. They understand the hierarchy and they respected that. But after the fall, it's like from that moment on, it's like she's gonna constantly want to have that power. And no matter where she goes, she's always going to be under the governing of a man. So it's going to be either laws created by men, or she's going to be dependent on the system, which is ran by men, you know, or she's going to be dependent on the man physically, whoever she's married to. So it's like they're going to constantly want this power, but they're never going to actually truly have it because they're always going to be under the authority of men. And so it was funny. So I just kind of blew Phil's mind the other day with that when we were doing one of our episodes.
That story too, Rolo's been talking about this lately, that Adam's first sin wasn't that he ate the apple, was that he listened to his wife.
Well, he watched her. She was there.
Yeah.
So in the real translation, Adam was there when Eve was eating it, and he never corrected her. He never stopped her in the process. And he's just like, well, I just want to be cool too. So I'm just going to do what she does. So actually the first sin was Adam deferring his authority to her.
Yeah.
Was that the first step toward a strong, independent woman, Glenn?
Yep, that was it. That was it.
If you actually
and look where we are now.
Exactly. If you listen to that story, right, it's like she ate the apple because the snake told her. Okay, started with a lie, and he didn't hold her accountable.
And then we're bitching about accountability.
Hey, Thor, in the chat there, Coco has something about for the right alpha. Can you bring that up?
Oh yeah, let's do it. You got it.
So she says, for the right alpha, for the right,
it.
There we go. For the right alpha, she will throw out her BS out the window. Could you imagine that if a guy said that, you know what, for the right feminine woman, I'll be a leader. You know, that doesn't work. It doesn't work for men. But
no, it doesn't, because it's conditional.
Can say that. Yeah, women can say that kind of crap though. But for the right guy, I'll be a feminine woman. Doesn't work the other way around.
No, and that's a big part of, that's a real insight into some of the issues we have right now. It's an insight into what's going on in the sexual marketplace globally. Is very few men will ever qualify in her mind with the access she has, or at least the access she thinks she has globally to those right men, which we all know is probably a much smaller percentage than it actually exists. And I'll say this about the chore play, you know, we're causing this. We're causing women to talk about this. Why are we causing this? Because we have men that think they're going to ask the fish how to fish. So they say, well, what do you want? Well, I want more chores, but now you'll get more sex. This is, women don't know what they want. They will say whatever they're thinking without filter, and it's not what they want. They can't hardly tell you what they want. Hence, when we ask them, where do you want to eat? There's that confusion. This is where the paradox of choice comes in. So if you really want to play this game, you want to play it hard, you'll have several choices, or two choices, no more than three, picked out in order that you know her response will be. And that's how you lead them, and they feel very comfortable and safe in making a choice that you've already pre-selected. That's also why I think pre-selection is so important as well, you know. But there's plenty of men that will listen to that and say, I'll do all the chores for you, baby. You could see it on Instagram. Just go through any girl's thing in there. You're so wonderful. I would do all the chores for you. I'd fold your clothes. I'd get you up every morning. I'd give you coffee. I'd see you off to work, you know. The amount of thirst that's expressed online just blows me away. I think it's actually a psychopathy with men right now that are in that lower third that are sexless. They're trying anything desperately, and that'll keep this chore play thing going forever, I think.
Just ahead, real quick, going back to the where do you want to eat thing. So when I figured that out, because it took me a while to figure this stuff out myself. You know, I had a marriage that ended after 14 years. And then after that, I got into a relationship for 4 years that failed because I just wasn't leading. And when I finally decided to dive into this stuff, one of the first things I read was a book called Atomic Attraction by Christopher Canwell. And he talks about the whole, eating dynamic. And so when I learned that, I was like, oh, I'm going to try this out. And every chick that I dated after that, I would just say, hey, we're eating here. Hey, I want to have steak tonight. Get your shoes. And I've never had a woman argue with me. But if you really want your woman to pick a place and pick something to eat, do that. Because I've been dating my current girlfriend for like the last 2 years. And I've done that from the beginning. Hey, we're going to go here tonight. Hey, we're going to do this tonight. We're eating this tonight. So now if she really wants something, she will suggest it. She'll say, hey, I was thinking of eating this tonight. And I'm like, perfect. You know,
I do a really similar thing too. I'll select something and just make the statement, we're going here, and then I'll wait just a second. I'll go, but I was kind of thinking like this, maybe. And with those two choices, I mean, she will almost always go for the first one, but then sometimes she'll go for the second one, which I already planned for it anyway. So there's never an argument when it's done.
That's leading, man. That's leading.
You know what? I want to make a point about what you guys were bringing up a little bit ago about the fact that like guys not meeting up to the standard, right? Like, if the guy finally meets up to the standard, like what Coco said, if you're the right alpha, if you check off these boxes, it's something that's not just taught out here, but it's also reinforced in the church, because like even they will say like, women, wives, you need to let your husband lead. And it's like, no. It's not a let thing. It's like when you chose to marry him, you now deferred your authority that you had over yourself, and you've given that power to him. That was part of the marriage. So if you don't have a let thing, it's not a choice anymore at that point, because if you go by what it says, you're supposed to submit to him in all areas. So if you're supposed to submit in all areas, that means you defer that power that you have to make free will choices to his leadership in that sense. And so when it comes to this chore play thing, I also refer people back to Corinthians, where it talks about not to deny each other from each other. You're not supposed to withhold yourself from one another unless it's for a specific amount of time, which is dedicated to prayer. So I know a lot of these bitches ain't out here dedicating all this time to prayer, and they need to pray. That's why they can't give you no ass. They're doing it because they don't want to. And it's like, look, we could either do it this way as it's supposed to be done, or then we have a problem and we got to figure out the solution, because men, we have the responsibility, even though it may not be our fault, but we have the responsibility to act.
Oh, that's perfect, Glenn. Let me ask you this question, the whole panel, for a little bit of a direction on that, a little bit of a spin on that. So if you find yourself and you're in this long-term relationship and it's very comfortable, it is pretty normal for it to kind of get into a settled spot, right? And then what happens, at least many times happens, is there's a little bit of complacency there, and then sex does start to wane a little bit. Sex is really the glue that holds relationships together. And if a man allows that to happen, it won't be too long where she's having headaches and things like that, if you're not maintaining that. So what is your guys' suggestion when things start to, shall we say, soften with the relationship, way before it gets to the point where chores are the problem? Because when you get to chores, you're negotiating for literal sex. That's what that news article said. And the ones we put up earlier was, this is the most amazing thing. I'm saving my marriage because he does these chores. I can give him sex. That essentially is a transactional exchange, which kind of defines prostitution in a way.
Well, it is prostitution. And then that's why I said in my video, I'm like, ask yourself, would you pay her to fuck you? Or would you want to go get, if you're going to pay for it, would you pay for this, or would you pay for something better? So
if you find yourself as a guy, I think we've probably all been there, where it starts to get a little soft. Relationship doesn't have that honeymoon part, but it's good. But things are just right there.
I would say for guys, the key to avoiding that is you need to sort of have be lovingly detached from the relationship, so you can maintain that awareness, and you need to constantly be gauging your woman's attraction to you. Right. But a lot of guys, it's a lot of work to do that. I mean, it's not, once you get good at it, it becomes effortless. It's sort of like what you do naturally, but a lot of guys, they think it's too much work. They stop doing it. And so once you get to the point where you are sort of, looking at chore play as a possibility, you've already too far gone. Now you got an uphill battle. So the trick is to not get there in the first place.
Yeah.
No, I really liked what you said about that. You have to almost be like a third party observer and observe that attraction level to determine your next course of action.
Yeah. Ryan says, I don't know if you've read his first book, Fuck Files, great book, but he talks about it as you need to hate your woman just a little bit. I don't think you have to go that far, but as long as you're just, constantly being aware of the situation and gauging that attraction and interest level from her, then you know where you need to be, what you need to work on, and stuff like that.
If it's anything other enthusiastic from her, you're messing up.
Yep.
And if you can't spot what you're messing up, sit her down and ask her, what's the problem? Number two, if it's looking a little soft, you need to start banging her more. It's just it, man. Because sex definitely is the glue that holds a relationship together. A well-fucked woman is a well-behaved woman.
Yeah, I think what I would suggest is like realize before you could even correct her, you have to correct you.
Yes.
Okay, because like if it's starting to fall off and you see noticing it's falling off on her end, more than likely you're falling off too. And you don't even realize it. So before you could address her falling off, you need to remedy yours. And then you get yourself back to, as Paul was saying, you get back to that level to where you start working on yourself and getting that uphill battle. And once you start making significant strides and you could get to a point where you're like, okay, I'm back on my game. I'm back doing what I'm supposed to do. I mean, that's why I said, like, when you guys get in a relationship, when you get married, it's like, you don't get to just stop everything that you were doing before. No, all you're doing is adding more things to do to that list. But it's a choice that you make. You're like, you got to do everything that you did to get to the I do's and then everything after that as well. Like, it doesn't just stop. So if you were in the gym, if you were on point, then you got to maintain that attraction. You got to maintain that status in her eyes.
They say that marriage is red pill on hard mode, right?
Yeah, no, seriously. It is. It's like if you're going to do it, you have to do it right.
So I think a little different. Okay. I think all relationships are transactional. Any relationship you have is transactional because there's some basis for you're giving something for something.
There's always an exchange. Absolutely. Right. There is.
Okay. So, but the understanding is when I go in and negotiate that relationship in the first 4 or 5 dates or whatever, before we get into some serious relationship or 6 months, I don't waver from that negotiation. That's where guys start losing things. Okay, they waver from the negotiation. They start giving it's the death by 1,000 cuts, basically. All right, and if you're going to suffer that, then why be in the relationship? So, like I said, it's about we talk about frame, and a lot of guys don't understand frame. All right, it's having an expectation of yourself, what you want out of life, and the people that you bring into your life, and setting those expectations. And when they come into your life, giving them that expectation and holding them that expectation. Because if you're holding yourself to your own expectations, you have a right to hold other people to them. Excuse me, I'm losing my voice just a little bit. And way too many guys give in. They're saying, well, this is really good stuff. So I'm going to give this much. And then the next time, I'm going to give this much. You can't do that. And way too many young men don't realize that. They're always in the process of giving. And they don't feel like they have any right to take something for themselves. And I'm not talking, grape or anything like that. I'm talking about taking something and taking it and making it a part of you and making her a part of you at that time. She may not remain a part of you for the rest of your life.
Right.
But you can't negotiate. You can't keep renegotiating and expect things not to change.
Yeah, particularly with those expectations, for sure.
I think one of the deals is you can't logically communicate with a woman. We talked about that earlier, what you said, Thor, about the guy walking in the room. Okay, he communicated to all those girls in there and said few words. And what they push along with chore play is communication. You see a lot of these women therapists, you must communicate. I agree with that. But what they're talking about is telling men to communicate with women using their words. And as you guys know, that's not near as powerful as the actions and the presence of the man, which was represented by the man Thor talked about, the guy who walked in the room with the tattoos. So what are you communicating to her that it has gotten to the point where she doesn't want to be with you physically? You have to ask yourself that and then re-communicate to her the man that she's attracted to. I helped a guy here in Down Under here about a year ago. He was in the same situation, home, taking care of the chores, doing all that. His woman was not. She was just totally distant, didn't want to be with him physically. And I told him, I said, you need to start going back to the gym, doing things for yourself, because he was constantly trying to do things to make, around the house to help. He had a couple of kids, wasn't sure about them either, whose they were, but he started taking care of himself, going back to the gym, and then she started coming after him. He reattracted her to him by his actions, not by talking to her, which he had tried, but by communicating to her that he was a man again, or his manlyhood had come back, his masculinity.
Yeah, like in a way, that's him checking himself and realizing, okay, I fell off. Here, let me reassess myself first, because I can't address her until I address myself. And now that I'm back up to the standard which we agreed to, now I'm in a position to where I can address her because I'm upholding that standard that I told her that I would uphold.
Right. He just needed a little guidance, and then he got on track, and everything got back good for him.
And Paul was right. There has to be detached observation too. If you're not observing yourself and observing the standards and evaluating yourself against your own standards, how can you evaluate anyone else against your standards?
I think that's where a mentor comes in handy too, because sometimes we can't see ourselves, but if we tell someone else, sometimes they don't have to say anything, and you realize, oh gosh, look, this is what I'm doing. No wonder she's not. But we need someone to reflect that back off to, because we can't see it when we're in the midst of the emotional turmoil.
Yeah, particularly if you have a mentor that's lived through it too and can recognize it long before it's there, because he can always look back.
Yeah.
In retrospect, there's so much to be said right there. It's another reason we talk about the actionable advice that we give is find a mentor, a strong masculine mentor that you can, kind of use in that capacity. It's very, very beneficial if men that have gone before you have learned these lessons, as also expressed, even though I'm a fan of Odin, in the Bible. Those men that lived that, including Adam and Eve, they lived that experience and wrote it down. You see, yeah, Odin's a different guy. He just pluck his eye, whatever. Here's
a question. Here's a question. Like, so we all know that, like, how things kind of end up. You get the sexlessness or the chore play comes up, right? And that typically is negotiated in counseling, right? So there's things that are leading up, and you typically talk about this whole chore play thing in counseling, unless your wife presents it to you first. And we all know that counseling is the last stop before the D. And I'm not talking about the dick, that's the divorce. So what are things, what should guys realize, like, when they get to that point where they start seeing these flags? They already notice, they shouldn't be noticing, right, that their wife is slowly either checking out or she's in the process of checking out, especially if you get to the point where you have to go to counseling and now negotiate sex. You got to realize, like, the sex that she's going to give you is obligatory, if at all. And it's not going to be even enthusiastic. So when should guys realize, like, because there's a lot of guys that do this, that they will go all in. It's like they feel like they're already so far invested, right, that they're just gonna put all in rather than pull out.
That's that sunk cost fallacy where they're like, oh, I've already invested 14 years into this woman, I can't give up on her now. It's like, dude, she was checked out 2 years ago, bro.
Yeah, and if you got kids too, I mean, I've stayed in them long after I learned a lot from it, but yeah, you got, like, I had 6 kids in that last one. It's like, it's hard to get out of that because you
have a big investment, not only with children, but with your ego too.
The dream.
You got to be like the movie Heat, right?
Yep. I just said that.
Yep. You got to be like the movie Heat. You got to be willing to walk away as soon as, at any given time. In the person that's willing to walk away and mean it really has all the negotiating power, if there is any kind of negotiating. So
a cardinal rule, is it not?
Yep,
you have to be willing. You have to be willing to walk away from your wife and your kids, because if it gets to that point, she knows that you love those kids and can't hardly live without them. She will use that, and you're stuck. You got to walk away from everything, just like the men of old did when they got on a ship or they went off to war for years.
And that's the thing. Like, if a guy's in that kind of situation, though, the actionable advice would be, sit your girl down and say, hey, moving forward from this point on, we need to square these things away in our relationship. These are the things that I'm not liking right now. These are the things I don't like about myself that I'm going to work on. What do you need to work on with yourself? Give me your thoughts. And then if these can't be corrected, we're done. That's the thing, though, as a guy, that sunk cost fallacy, like you were saying, Paul.
Mhm.
You know, I've been there, done that, man. Trust me. But I put that benchmark out there, and it was like, hey, you know, from this point forward, these are my expectations. They need to be met or we're done all the way.
You know, what's real funny is there's this really old red pill post by a Hawaiian libertarian. He talks about the was it the emasculation paradox, right? And a lot of guys are afraid of divorce and, you know, having their kids taken away and getting divorced, raped or whatever. And it's like, the funny thing is that if you're willing to walk away and go scorched earth at any given moment, and she knows that, that's what's most likely to keep that marriage together and keep her in check, honestly.
Oh, that's a big point. You know, I come to realize that when I do a lot of my impact consulting, is when I'm talking to guys, and part of the LTR stuff is you have to have an escape plan. And this is not sexy and this is not romantic. And this will be, there's some famous comedian running around out there that's all about how bad prenups actually are if you're going to get married. Of course, he's been married less than a year. But in all honesty, you have to have that nuclear option at all times. And to make sure that those nuclear codes are safe, you have to have a plan. You have to have an escape plan. And that includes going so far as trusts, accounts, the whole thing. And this is maintained throughout the entire marriage or relationship. This is an important part of you establishing your leadership, is that you take care of yourself first and she can jump on your journey. How do I know this? I have a successful 30-year marriage so far. This is why, because it is important that you're so strongly established. If things do go south, and they do, sometimes people, you know, actually develop mental illness so bad that you have to have an escape plan. I think guys today are definitely convinced that they need to stay inside of bad marriages, and their entire identity is wrapped up in a successful marriage. And guys will, you know, literally get super depressed, stop eating, doing the whole post-traumatic thing over a divorce, you know.
Let me tee off of that real quick too. And I think, you know, sorry, Mark, about that, to cut you off there, but I think that needs to be with both parties. I think the chicks need to have their shit together too. They need to be willing to walk away, because see, that's going to keep dudes from getting comfortable and complacent. You know, that's the thing, man, is when weak men enter a woman's life, it destroys them. It wrecks them. And then you get a guy that's squared away that comes along, and he's like, okay, this is my game plan for life, and I want you to be a part of that. And oh, by the way, these are my expectations. And she's like, yeah, I want to do that with you. I want to experience that with you. I want to go there with you. But, you know, in the back of her brain, she's been left holding the bag. So she's always going to wonder that until once again, you train her to the way you want her. Women are trainable as long as you're handling business, you know, but I think girls also need to have that standard too, because, and, you know, I understand this is a men's panel and this is for men, but there's some girls in the chat that are watching this. I think that women need to understand, hey, you know, that sunk cost fallacy not only applies to men, it applies to women too. Go for it, Mark.
Oh, let me kind of tee off of that real quick, Mark. I just want to say, like, they already have that built in, though. I mean, that's already built in when it comes to marriage with the state. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, so that sunk cost fallacy, like that backup plan, they already have a fail safe. When they can just decide that they don't want to be in this anymore with no fault divorce. I mean, it already makes it so easy for them to gain or to have an exit strategy to where they actually still come up on top.
I got to push on that. I got to push on you a little bit just on that. How many chicks do you know in your life that have stayed with dudes that were failing them?
Not many. That's the sad thing. Like, that's the thing. Like, other than like, no, I don't know any. I really don't know any.
I've seen a few.
I mean, I know one that stayed with them until I came along, but you know, that was different.
I'm not promoting, you know, monkey branching or anything like that. What I'm saying is, you know, if they commit to a man and that man's a weak, fat, slobby dude that's completely not the guy they married, and he's let himself go, and they've had the talk, hey, these are the problems in our relationship, they need to be able to walk away too.
Oh yeah,
I'm not saying don't go act like a miscreant and go hop on 20 cocks.
But I'm saying with the divorce rate the way it is, it seems like they don't have that issue. You know, at 70% or 80% of the most divorces are filed by women. They don't have that problem. They already know that they have a fail safe already built in.
No, it's not that. It's they know that society gives them the right to have standards, and it doesn't give men the right to have standards. Okay,
That's very
so
poignant.
they can sit there and they can enforce their standards. All right, so it's not that it's built into them in the sense that other than they know it's just society accepts that they should be able to have standards. The problem is men have bought into the fact I can't have standards, and when my standards aren't met, I can't walk away because they're afraid to lose. It's either the Poon, the materialistic things, or anything like that. Any man that can't say I can recreate myself, all right, is going to be stuck in those type of relationships. So as long as you know you can walk away, recreate yourself, and recreate your wealth and all that stuff, it's the attachment, okay, that we assign to the stuff we have with that person. You've got to be able to detach yourself and from those attachments. Way too many men can't do that. That's why when we were talking on the show about zeroed out, that's why they get zeroed out. They can't walk away from the attachments, whether it's the attachment to the children, the woman, the life they've built, because they think that defines them. Way too many men don't define themselves. They let other things define them.
That is a problem today for sure. You know, Wraith, it's interesting. I want to address a couple of points here because I love where Wraith, he just tweaks it and it's like, holy shit. Of course, Wraith. What a gem you have there. Women experience just this perfectly anecdotal, and I'm going to sound like a whammon hater, and I'm not. But talking with many women in my lifetime that I have known that have gone through divorce, every one of them had a failing and bad man. In every regard, he was a slob, piece of crap, and she had to justify her exit. In retrospect, probably nearly all of them had some failings, but they were nowhere near what that woman said. In fact, they probably were some of the best men that those women had ever had, and nearly all of them regret it now. And that's just personal experience. So I kind of question the fact that there's a lot of women that pick bad men. They pick men that they're not comfortable maintaining a relationship with. That's what I think is actually going on. And, you know, men should take a lesson from that, you know, and women too. All relationships, all of them are temporary. You need to come into that relationship loaded like that, and you'll actually have better relationships. It's just the nature of how things are.
Well, I think we need to define what successful marriage is. Too many guys look at, 50% divorce rate. That means 50% of those marriages are successful. I think that's the way a lot of men look at it, but that's not really the truth, because out of those 50% that stay together, how many of those people are actually miserable in a sexless marriage and wish they could get out? But like I think Wraith mentioned something about it, they're not willing to walk away. They're afraid they're going to lose everything, either lose the woman or lose their finance or their kids, which most of the time they will. So what is success in a marriage? I mean, I think I know what it is, but too many people think it's just staying together. And if you divorce and they say, well, your marriage failed. Did the marriage fail? I had many years of successful marriage, but I'm not married today. So was it all a failure, or was some of it a success? So the definition there, again, what is the definition of a successful marriage? And just staying together does not define it, which is what I believe a lot of people term a successful marriage.
Yeah, I often get guys in my comments saying, I've been married for 30 years or whatever. And I always like to ask them, yeah, how's the sex? You know,
Yeah.
because and I think if you read Aaron Clary's book of Numbers, I think he said that the statistics show that only about 7% of people are actually say that they're happily married when they've stayed together that long.
Yep.
So
I believe it. Yeah.
Going to what Christian's saying here in the comments, marriage is a commitment. I was in that boat when my my now ex-wife went and filed for divorce. I was miserable. I was miserable for the last 7 years of my marriage, but I would have never quit because of that whole commitment thing. But I'll tell you what, she doesn't think that way. You know, once she starts getting like her friends that have been divorced in her ear and stuff like that, they start talking some sense into her. she's going to walk away, and it doesn't matter what you think. What you think is a commitment, she will walk.
Well, you need to understand a commitment. In order for a commitment to work, it has to be a commitment on both parties.
100%.
Okay, you can't save a marriage, just because you're committed.
I tried. It doesn't
it's
work.
like you can't carry the burden because what
Yeah.
you're doing is what was considered it's a certain type of covenant that's actually pointed out in the Old Testament when Abraham and God had a covenant. It was the Abrahamic covenant, right? And it's where God put Abraham in a trance where Abraham was not responsible for fulfilling the covenant, but God was. And when we do that, when we allow them to not be involved in and not be accountable for their part, and you try to make it work, now you are taking on the responsibility for the fact that they are no longer interested in it. And in a way, you are forcing them into this to maintain this covenant by you not acknowledging that their willingness to end it has already been displayed. So if by you taking on that responsibility, like, well, I'll just do more, I'll just be better, then you are now forcing them to stay in something that they already try to get out of.
And despised more by her.
Exactly. You're not going to make her love you more. You're going to actually make her resent you more every day by you not seeing the obvious choice that she's making. Like, hey, I'm out.
Yeah, this is a good comment because I see this a lot with modern religious marriages. Those wedding vows were not written in the Bible. They weren't. Those were written by religious organizations throughout the years. And when you say it's a commitment, what do they like to say? For better, for worse, death do us part, all that stuff. Yeah, I wrote my own wedding vows, and I didn't read anything like that. There is a certain level of expectation and boundary that we are responsible to do our best to meet. And at that point, that commitment can last. So I'm probably in the top 1% when it comes to marriages, as far as sex, happiness, and all that stuff. Look, you find a good wife, you'll have a great life. But
and I want to add something to what Phil was saying. Okay, you got to understand something. When you get married, and say it's from a religious perspective, excuse me, that covenant is not only between you and her; it's between you, her, and God.
Right.
Okay, so when you're doing that, and if you can maintain a marriage from that, the focus, whether the focus is on you or her, as far as the covenant goes, the focus has to be on God and Christ. All right. And by doing that, you can maintain that sense of dignity, honor, respect, and stuff through that. That's a religious marriage. What the boundaries of that marriage are covered under the guidelines of, whatever religion you're in, whether it's Muslim, Christian, or whatever. And if they're following those guidelines, it's easier to maintain. But as a man in today's society, women don't respect that covenant. And most men don't respect that covenant. So that comes back to you have to develop at least a covenant with yourself so that how you're going to live your life and how you're going to project that. And that's frame. And that's what that frame is. Frame is that covenant with you. And if you're not doing that, all right, there's no way that you can hold yourself or anyone else responsible but you, because it solely relies on what your expectations are. Now, if you're a religious man and you want to include that as part of your frame and you want to grow your life and marriage and kids and that's fine. There's no problem with that. But to sit there and say, hey, we're going to get married by the state, and this is a commitment, a lifelong commitment, you're just being foolish. Because it's not. Because the state is not going to keep you married. All right? And you're not going to keep you married if you're relying on the state to do that.
And nowhere in the Bible does it say, thou shalt get married through the state.
Nope.
And it's funny because you brought that up, Wraith, and the thing that hit me when you say if you're going to do it that way, if you're going to do it through a covenantal marriage in that structure, there's two things that, when it comes to commandments that God gave to marriage, and if you don't see either of those things being played out by both parties, then you could tell that they have already destroyed or removed they're not fulfilling their part of the covenant. And that is, wives must submit and respect their husbands, period. And husbands need to love their wives. When those two things are not in there, if a wife is not being submissive, if she's not giving you that ass, and that's part of submission, if she's not willfully giving you that ass and she's putting these chore play things, that is a sign that she's not respectful to you and your position, and she's not submitting to you in the way that is biblically sound that she already agreed to that covenant with, right? So there's a violation of the covenant right there. Yes, and that's an egregious offense, you know, and when you look at it from that standpoint, it's like, look, you are causing this to be a problem now. And again, like I said earlier, guys, it may not be our fault, or we may not be the ones to blame, but we are the ones who have to be responsible enough to act. And whatever that action is our position, because that's our position as the head of the household. And it, you know, people mistake blame and responsibility and think it's the same thing, you know, and it's not. They, you know, it might not be my fault, but you know what, damn, I have to be the one that has to address this, because this is my role, is to address this. You know, so
what are the two things you need to be a leader? Yeah, there's two parts of leadership: authority and responsibility. Okay, and you can't lead without both. You can delegate the authority, but you can't delegate the responsibility. You can never do that. So you may give authority to your wife, all right, but you can't take away the responsibility from yourself. So why you would do that, I don't know. You know, because as Phil said, you know, they're bound to destroy it. And you can't walk away and say, well, I wasn't responsible for it. You were, because you're supposed to be the leader. You're supposed to be the authority and hold the responsibility for that authority in the relationship.
Yeah, and I think like people, like guys think like, well, she's the one that needs to fix herself. She needs to get right. Okay, no, you need to be the one to be responsible enough to address that to where she does get right. Or you make the decision that she chooses not to get right. All right, you're not fulfilling the covenant. The covenant is now broken because of your actions. We're done. We're moving on. You go your way, I go my way.
That is interesting, because in an Abrahamic religion, remember, Christianity is not the only one.
Right.
Islam is like that too. And when that's done, the husband has the right, and he has to make a proclamation 3 times, and it's over. It's done.
Yeah, and I think
sure you've studied that, Glenn.
I think didn't Martin Luther do something similar too? He said, "Look, address it with her. If she's not fixing it, go to the church, address it in front of the church, and then go fuck the maid." Like that
was his
savage. Savage.
A savage after our own heart.
He took that approach from. There's a part in the Bible where it says when you're addressing an offense with a fellow Christian, right? You go to them privately. You address it with them. If the offense is not amended by then you go. You leave. You come back with a third party to be a witness. And if that doesn't work, you leave. You come back, and then you bring it in front of the church. Right. And you try to address it there. And then if it doesn't work there, then you treat them as if they were a non-believer and you cast them out. Like you're done with them. They're done. And I think that's what Martin Luther was doing. He was taking that approach like, hey, all right, you bring this up to your wife. She's not addressing it. Okay, then you bring it up with somebody in council. She's not addressing it. Then you bring it up to your body, the people that you are fellowshipping with. And if she's still after that is not addressing it, then you go do your thing. Because at that point, you have fulfilled the steps that you needed to take to meet that end, you know, before doing what you're doing, before you go fucking the maid, you know. But a lot of guys, what they tend to do is they fuck the maid beforehand, and then they try to go do those steps and they fuck it all up.
Yeah. And what they should have done is just married the maid to begin with, and we wouldn't have no short play shit.
It'd be like Arnold Schwarzenegger. Didn't he have an affair with the maid for like 27 years or something like that?
He didn't have any foreplay problems, did he?
Hell no. But he had a kid by that maid, didn't he?
Yeah. Yeah.
It looks just like him too.
Well, I think Phil made a great point. What you guys were talking about here earlier. He said, you sit down with the woman and you tell her about what you want her to address, but then you say what you have to address too, because it's gotten to that point more often than not, because the man is not doing what he's supposed to do. But too many times the man, and I've done it, he wants to focus on her and, well, you're doing this and this and this. And he doesn't look back at himself and say, hey, how did I allow it to get to this point? What is my part in it? Because until you do that, let's say you do dump her. Let's say she doesn't straighten up. You'll go right out and end up in the same situation sometime down the road with another woman with a different face, but the same thing.
Yeah, a lot of guys just don't have any sense of self accountability. They want to hold women accountable, but they won't hold themselves accountable. Great book. Everyone should read it. Is Extreme Ownership by Jocko Willink.
Well, absolutely.
Got it on my bookshelf right here, Paul.
Great.
No, and Paul,
it's excellent one, man. It is excellent. You know, and
Yeah, I haven't read that.
Paul, what you're saying right there is like facts, because like half the time, half the guys that are in this space are bitching about female not being accountable.
Yeah,
You know, but damn near 90% of them fail to be accountable to their own actions.
Yep.
You know, it's interesting. I spoke, Mark, to let you know, that's from my own experiences, because if something was sideways in my relationship with my girl, I'd look at her right in the face and say, am I missing something here? Let me know. What's the problem here?
And they will tell you, even without
if there's
asking.
beef. Oh, well, there's no beef. Then what's going on?
Yeah. If you
then
listen.
I just go to work.
Yeah.
I love that method because I used it myself very similarly. You know, you just tell the woman, obviously it's the Phil Foster method, and the Mark Daniels method is you tell the woman, come over here and sit on my lap. We're going to get something straight between us.
Well, and way too many men today,
so to speak.
They want to fight and argue with them.
Oh yeah, you want to act emotional, and that's kind of like what I wanted to say. You know, earlier is that the female mystique, when we were talking earlier, I just never got it out. You know, is when you guys were talking about Coco's post about, you know, the right alpha. You know, she'll let all that go. You know, it's the feminine mystique or the female mystique. But I think women don't necessarily think they feel. Right. And that's I didn't get the opportunity to circle back on you, Thor, with that. You know, I think that a way a woman feels in your presence is going to dictate how she behaves around you. If she feels safe, if she feels protected, if she feels provided for, because you're handling your business and you're squared away as a man, there shouldn't be any problems. And if there is, once again, she could just be a flawed woman and you need to be able to walk away.
Right.
Well, and I want to say something for women too, okay, or to women. If you have a man that's understands himself, all right, he's not going to argue with you. All right. He'll discuss things with you, but he's not going to argue with you. Because the minute he argues, he's down at your level. All right. And you're wanting to exhibit feelings and emotions about what you're talking about. All right. And those don't usually accomplish an outcome. Okay, he's going to take action. If you say, hey, you know, this is what is wrong with our relationship, he's going to look at that logically and evaluate it. So, well, I can see your point, but he's never going to be angry. Too many young men think that they live their relationships by anger, emotions, and ultimatums. That's why you fail in a relationship.
Guilty.
Okay. And if you've been doing that in the past, you need to stop it.
Yep. Absolutely.
Guilty.
Yeah,
Dang it, Ray.
Dang,
just throw me up on the stand.
You know,
Fire squad.
Get the cross out.
Jesus, man.
Gotta go repent now. Gotta go repent.
I mean, I've got kids, and you can ask all my kids. I've been married twice, I'm widowed twice, but you can ask all my kids. They never saw me argue with their mother. It just didn't happen. And the girl I'm with right now, when she starts down there, I said, stop. Come back to me when you want to discuss this.
Do you give her the look, Wraith? You just give her a look?
Actually.
You don't even have to say anything anymore. You're so masterful with that.
Yep. I just, you know, she was going off today on something. I said, look, you're too young, you're too naive to think about this. I want you to really think about it and then come and talk to me about it.
You know,
So
Mr. Justin, my apologies. Real quick, Mr. Justin put something in the chat. He says, rule number 3, your voice volume is to never exceed my own. That is a really good one. We live by that in our house. That's important, right? I prefer to talk to my girl at almost a whisper.
Yep.
And I prefer the same back from her.
Is that the Phil Foster whisper?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah, you know, he tried that shit on me one time, and I was like, bro, I'm deaf in my left ear. You got to speak up when you talk to me.
And I wanted to say a quick thing about girls and arguing. You know, there is one outcome, Wraith. Some girls like that roller coaster, right? So they'll pick a little something just to get fucked right. or get
Get
fucked
that makeup
harder.
sex.
I just wanted to throw that out there on you, Wraith. I want you to comment.
It's
brother.
their way of creating a manufactured drama.
Mhm.
And you know what? That's the guy's position. Guys need to create that manufactured drama. That means that way you could control that drama, because women all love drama, whether they want to admit it or not. They're like, I'm drama free. Hashtag no trauma.
Yeah, right.
No. You either watch it on TV to get it vicariously, or you create it yourself.
You
All
can
right.
create
So
novelty and bypass that, but yeah, absolutely, they need that emotional spiking. You know, I hate to say drama. I don't need to do it just to get somebody upset, but it's the same sort of thing. To get, what did Rolo say? The dopamine spike. That's important to them, and they'll get it. They'll pick a fight.
Crave
just at the-
indignation is what he says. Yeah.
Yep. They'll do that just to get.
I do it a little different, Phil. I just say, not tonight. I'm too tired from all your drama. When you calm down, we'll talk.
You know, in Dr. Robert Glover has a really good book called Dating Essentials for Men. He talks about how women, you know, they're emotional creatures, right? But they don't want their man to jump on their emotional roller coaster. They need to know that someone has their feet on the ground. So when you jump on their emotional roller coaster, start arguing with them and stuff like that, you're getting all emotional. You're acting like a woman at that point. We've already addressed acting like a woman. But if you can stay cool and calm, like Wraith is talking about, and, you know, almost like stoic in that instance, like that actually spikes their attraction for you. They're like, oh shit, I can't knock this guy off center, you know?
Yeah, I was in my group that the guys were in. They were talking about this, and they were talking about just that thing. And I said, look, I don't make decisions, and I don't yell, and I don't scream. I only make comments, and I only talk about things after I've discerned what I want to talk about. So if she comes to me with a problem, I'm going to look at the problem. I'm going to think about it. Then I'll have the conversation with her. All right. That way, I'm not manufacturing drama for myself, and I'm not participating in her drama, because it does no good. It doesn't bring you happiness to do that. Now, do I create drama for her sometimes? Sure, I do. You know, but I'm not doing it because for any other reason other to keep her engaged. But like I said, her drama that she comes up with, I'm not playing that game.
You can either put her on the roller coaster and run the controls, or you can get on the roller coaster with her.
Yeah, I don't jump on the roller coaster. It's just not part
either
of
you're the passenger or the driver. Which one are you going to be?
Goes back to what Paul says. There's only one steering wheel in a car.
Yep.
And like I said, way too many men I talk to, they live their lives by ultimatums. They give themselves ultimatums, and they give them ultimatums. And when you do that, you create a no-win situation for yourself. That's why you need to know what you're about. You need to understand what your frame is, how you're going to live your life. Those are all things that we should have taught them as young men, but somebody didn't do that. Whether it was because they're from a single mother family or whatever. All right. But 90% of the problems I deal with are men not understanding themselves and understanding what they want in life. Then they go out into the world and try to create a life based on what everybody else wants from them.
Yeah.
A woman does not feel safe with an over-emotional man or a vulnerable man, as far as that goes. Contrary to what you guys know. Correct me if I'm wrong.
No, I like to say that you know, when the shit hits the fan, a woman doesn't want an emotional man.
Yeah, there you go.
Now, guys, I want to get us
Hey
back.
guys, we got Rolo up in the chat. What's up,
Hey,
Rolo?
welcome, Rolo. It is horseshit. For sure. It gets clicks for sure. Yep. Hey, I wanted to, it was definitely debunked. I actually have the study here. I was going to bring it up, but we never did. There's actually a study on this, and what it was done by the American Sociological Association. It's called Egalitarianism, Housework, and Sexual Frequency in Marriage. And here's what these 19 pages actually say, is that the men and the women in marriage that adhered to more traditional roles had more gratifying and more frequency of sex than those in egalitarian relationships by a factor of 2. There you go. And Randall, I have those in the description if you want to put those in the link tree. if you want, if anybody's interested in looking up that study. So I find that kind of interesting. The traditional roles by a factor of 2, more frequent and more fulfilling sex lives. Oh, that's kind of interesting. And when they say traditional roles, they beat around the bush, but we know what they are. The man was bringing home the bacon, doing all the male chores, all the male stuff around the house, and not what you would consider egalitarian housework.
And Rolo, just so you know, I sent you the link if you wanted to pop up, you know, if you wanted to.
Oh, Rolo's actually is he putting it up for us right now?
Yeah, he said, you know, his link. I dropped him the link to come up here if you wanted to come up.
Oh, cool. Yeah, it was in the Twitter too, Rolo, if you wanted to jump in for a minute.
I just sent it to him on Instagram. So if he wanted to hop up, it's there.
Yeah, you should have it either way. But yeah, same one. And then here we go. We'll go ahead and post this one too. Beautiful, 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 beautiful.
Yeah, it's funny because when they push the chore play thing, if you look at like the topics now about it, there's so many of the same people that were once pressing this whole chore play idea are now coming out and speaking against it. They tell you that's like a lot of these female like relationship, you know, ladies, like coaching ladies, they tell them the worst thing that you could do is to do chore play. And I heard that from 2 female like articles on chore play when I was doing my research for it, for when I did the episode. There was 2 women that were originally 10 years prior were, you know, interested in agreeing to chore play. They end up retracted their statement 10 years later saying like, no, it's one of the worst things that you could do in your relationship.
There's actual studies now that show that like the 5 love languages, that they did studies on it that shows that it has no impact on healthy relationships.
Right. But it's great chick crack, man. It's great chick crack.
Yeah, 100%.
It's like the horoscope for love. Oh, what's your love language? Oh, you're a gifts or service, acts of service. Oh yeah, well I'm words of affirmation, so we don't get along, bitch. You know, it's like you don't speak my language.
Funny.
Which is funny because that's, I mean, the idea of it. I've read the book. The idea of it is not that, oh, I'm compatible because you're a Pisces or whatever. It's that understanding that person's love language, and then you're supposed to speak to them in that love language. But it's all bullshit. It's all nonsense. It's been completely refuted.
Yep. So like, all right. So what if we were giving these guys actual advice? So it happens. They kind of notice that the sex is going down. If we had to give them like 6 things, you know, to think about when they, you know, they are, you know, addressed with this issue before they have to go nuclear, what are your guys' thoughts?
I'd say, what were you doing when you got together with her that you're not doing now? To start off right there.
Yep. Hit the gym.
You don't know how many, like, people think that we just say that just to say that shit, but no, it solves so many problems.
It's legit. Yeah. Hit the gym. What's your frame like? You know, are you deferring to her authority? Are you taking the lead? Because if you're not doing any of those things, like that's number one. You got to fix that kind of stuff.
Yeah. I'm not going to repeat those, but I will do another one, which is become a contextual alpha in some type of hobby, event, sport, something. If you can become a contextual alpha where you dominate something, that works real well too. I mean, believe it or not, if you're really good at something and you can defeat other men and gain prowess there, that's a big deal too.
Did you guys, sorry, Phil, did you guys see the post on there about, was it Nessie, I think? One of the soccer players, his girlfriend, they showed pictures of him, of his girlfriend from the time they were kids. And of course, a couple of people in the chat refuted it, saying she wasn't his girlfriend. She was just his friend then. She had a boyfriend and she dumped him when the soccer player, I think it was Messi, whatever his name is, became successful. So, you know, that kind of shows you there, because he changed and she came after him. Just the same way, if you're in a relationship and you change, they lose their attraction for you. So there was something about you, as I said earlier, that attracted her to you enough that she wanted to marry you or be your girlfriend or whatever, why isn't that there now? And you have to take responsibility for that. And when you do that, then you can go back to the gym or do whatever it is you need to do that you're not doing because you're lacking. More than likely, unless they're really screwed up, like Phil said, and they had to have some serious mental issues.
Yeah, well, women will try to domesticate you, right? Like they will, like if you're that strong alpha male guy that she wants to bang, they get with you, then they do want that beta buck side. So they do start doing these little things, the death by 1,000 cuts thing, to try to beta-tize you. And I think a lot of guys, the big problem is they just let themselves do that. They're not aware of it. And the key is to just not fall into that. Nip that in the bud right away.
Yeah, I think you guys, like, for me, I would say, like, once you see that starting to go down, you need to check yourself first before you could even go to her and be like, hey, why aren't you sucking my dick no more? You know, it's like, first check yourself. And then, you know, as and also, you know, part of that is when you're checking yourself, you also do what Phil Foster said, is that the next time you guys fuck, you fuck to her like it's the last time you're ever going to fuck her again. You know, you make her remember who you are. It's like you're reclaiming that pussy again. You're like, hey, this is mine. And then you give her that reminder, and that might help also encourage her to be like, oh, yeah. Now I know who he is. Yep, I remember.
Yep. Well, we will continue to see chore play come back into vogue, like Rollo had just stated. It is one of those things that's a perennial to get some eyeballs on the dead bedroom again. Yeah. And it also buys a lot of time for the monkey branching, in my opinion, because if you're in a dead bedroom, you got to get those beta orbiters up into the warming position and into the batter's box, and that takes some time. Therefore, if you can get your house clean at the same time and buy time to get the new batter up, you're doing good.
You literally have no chill. None.
Absolutely none. None, bro. No chill.
Oh, man. It's crazy, man, when you like, I mean, if my girl looked at me and said, hey, you got to do the dishes before I'm going to give you any, I'd be like, okay, see you later.
Yeah, I'd be like, okay, so you want us to be broken up. Okay, we're done. That's cool. You're trying to renegotiate our arrangement in the middle of it? No. Trying to do that negotiation thing. We're done.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I just use paper plates. I never wash a dish, you know. Or what if what if I'm you know, eating the goodie? Well, how do I clean up? How do I wash that dish? Anyway, we should probably wrap up, guys. We're getting close to the hour.
Coco wanted me to say when she was talking about the woman saying like she'll do it for the right alpha, she's referring to that's like the modern woman's mindset. And that, like, you know, she's like, right, you know, a woman with traditional values wouldn't be that way. You know, she was just saying like this, what she was talking about is like, that's how the modern woman is. It's like, oh yeah, we'll do it for the right guy. And that kind of goes to what you guys were saying earlier. Like, guys, we don't have that plot. We don't get to say that. Oh yeah, we'll be masculine for the right broad. You know, it's like, it doesn't work out in our favor.
Yeah, the feminine mystique, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's been conditioned for them for a very long time, from, you know, very early age too. So
Yep.
All right, guys, I think we should probably start to wrap this thing up. What a cool episode today on the you know, trading the dishes for the bedroom fun. Always a good one. Let's go ahead and go round table and give everybody's final thoughts and where we can find you and what you're up to. And that should be good times as always. Let's start with our good buddy Wraith. Wraith, what are your final thoughts, man? How many dishes you done today?
None. I thought I got COVID stuff. But you know, like I said, it's a journey, guys, and the journey is to get know yourself. Because once you know yourself and you can be able to accept loss, detach, and be able to attach from relationships and material things, you're gonna have a better understanding about the value of them to begin with, and a better understanding of yourself and your value. So I'm teaching a lot of that right now, because way too many men are invested in the wrong things. Instead of investing in themselves, they're investing in Xboxes and Maseratis or whatever your thing is. But being able to understand that the world begins with you, your world begins with you, and how you want to be perceived and how you perceive the world. If you don't have a good focus on that, you're playing other people's games, not yours. So you can find me at Wraith Tour on Instagram, Facebook, Telegram, and also in email at Yahoo. So I guess that's it.
Oh, thank you, Wraith, man. You go get well too, man. Stop getting sick. That stuff fixed.
Well, I took that last week off to spend time with my daughter. Now I find out she's got COVID, and I just tested and got it. So,
well, you get well.
I will.
Phil Foster, where can we find you?
What's up, guys? Great show today. Paul, nice to meet you. Good information inside of you, man. You can find me at philfosterfitness.com. I got all your training, hormones, and supplement needs if you're looking to dial it up in the gym. You can find me at philfoster_ on all social media platforms. You can also find me on the DragonShip. Weekly. Glenn and I are doing a pretty cool late night podcast together.
Yeah.
We released the first one. It was a good time putting that together. And you guys have a Merry Christmas. And shout out to my mom. It's her birthday today. She's 76.
Happy birthday, Mama Foster.
Exactly. And whatever you guys do not do the dishes to get laid.
Now, wait a minute. I have a hot dish to do. Does that count?
That counts.
All right.
You guys take care.
Thanks, Phil. Paul, come on, man, podcast.
Yeah, thank you so much for dropping the link and having me join Thor. This was actually really fun. Great conversation. I thought this was a very actionable episode, so appreciate it. I just finished my course on the practical law of attraction. So I took all the chick crack and the woo-woo magical thinking out of it. So it's really a course on mindset, reprogramming your paradigm, goal setting, and taking action on those goals. I have some guys reviewing it now, and I'll be making it available to the general public next week before everybody goes on their New Year's resolution. So look out for that on my social media. On top of that, tune into the Come On Man podcast Monday. It's available on all podcast platforms, including YouTube. And my guest is the late, great Alan Roger Curry, the godfather of direct game and verbal seduction. I believe this is his last interview. He and I recorded it at the beginning of November, and then he passed away at the end of November. So we talk about his 4 modes of communication and why he recommends whispering sweet nothings into a woman's left ear. So check that out. It's a really good interview.
Oh, that's awesome. And I highly recommend all the Paul stuff on the Come On Man podcast. I am personally looking forward to hearing that from ARC.
Thor, I just want to say Thor was my guest this past week. So go back and listen to that. You'll learn everything you want to know about RP Thor.
All right. More than you need. Anyway, thank you so much, man. And we'll see you again. I'm certain of that. Mark Daniels, Mark's Inspiration. Where can we find you?
Okay, you can find me at Mark Daniels, Mark's Inspiration on YouTube, Instagram, Mark's Inspiration, really across the platforms, Twitter, Rumble. Got a couple books on Amazon. Check those out. And welcome, Paul. Good to have you here today. A lot of good things said today. I think my summation of everything is if you're having to start to wash dishes to negotiate, it's a little too late, but you better do something besides try to communicate that to her. You better try to communicate it with your actions and get back to what you were doing that she fell in love with. Like I said when we were talked about it earlier, just too much emphasis, I think, on communication as far as verbally speaking to the girl, because you didn't get to the point where you're having to do chores by talking to her or not talking to her, but it's by your actions. Your actions speak louder than your words. And like Ryan said, you need to look at their actions instead of what they're saying. The same as she does for you. She looks at your actions more than she listens to what you're saying. So that's about my summation on it.
Oh, I appreciate you, Mark. Everybody go and subscribe to Mark's Inspiration on YouTube. He's got a show probably coming up tonight, unless you're delaying your shows for the holiday.
Well, we may not have one tonight. We may. We haven't decided yet. Christmas Eve, we may
Sounds
take off.
great. Fantastic, Mark. Thank you so much. And the one and the only, my master at arms, Glenn Lawrence.
Yes. Hello, everybody. So when I think about this, just kind of wrapping this up, for me, it's like, as men, we have a responsibility to maintain the standard. And as soon as we maintain the standard and when we maintain our accountability to what we are supposed to be, we also have the responsibility to disciple, which means discipline, and which means uphold the standard for those underneath us. And if our spouse is underneath us, as it's supposed to be, then it's our position to hold her accountable if she is falling short in these areas. And it's your position to remind her of the covenant that they made together with you. By negotiating it in the middle to appease her, then you are not respecting the covenant that you made. And I think that's important. We have to realize that it starts with us first. And if we choose to negotiate that covenant in the middle of it, then we're not respecting the original covenant that we made. And that's important to think about. We're not being accountable to that covenant when we do that. So that's something I think guys need to factor in this process if you guys come across this chore play thing. But where you can find me at Glenn Lawrence on YouTube, Glenn_Lawrence_presents on Instagram. Like Phil said, I just kind of created this new idea. I wanted to try to create like a late night show version podcast. And have like multiple different segments in it and different topics. And, some of them are comedy, some of them are serious. We throw little skits in there every once in a while. And so me and Phil have been working on this, and we just released, as he said, our first one last night on the DragonShip. You will also be able to catch the episode on our own channel today. We're going to release it today as well. So please check it out. Like I wanted to kind of change up the regular podcasting segment and try to do something a little different, as I am in the industry, in the entertainment industry. So it's kind of in my wheelhouse. So definitely check that out. Tell me what you guys think. Leave a like. If you hate it, tell me in the comment section. It's cool. But Paul, I will get you that information I told you about when you were doing the Power Ranger guy about the suicides. I will get that out to you. The statistics on all that stuff when we were talking. I will get that out to you soon. I promise. Okay, but other than that, you guys have a Merry Christmas. Thor.
Thank you, Glenn. It's always a pleasure, man. You're always a hard worker. And I want to also do a shout out to another really hard worker that wasn't on screen today, and that's Randall Johnston. He's got his studio rolling. He's our behind the scenes producer, and he does a fantastic job. He is our Hessier. And if you don't know what a Hessier is, that's a Viking general, and he does a great job. Shout out to Randall. Once again, I'm RP Thor. Subscribe to my channel, and more importantly, subscribe to the DragonShip, which is its own channel, and we'll have playlists of all of these fine men who have their content posted on the DragonShip. That'll be fantastic. Until next time, guys, you can find us all on our various platforms. Come and join and subscribe. And I'm going to take you guys out with a shameless little plug for the next minute. Till next time, Skull.
If you like this video, make sure to check out the DragonShip's YouTube page, where you'll get all our latest videos, hottest clips, and live streams. And make sure to like and subscribe. And aboard the DragonShip. Let's go. And if you haven't already, join Thor's The Dragons membership. It's a men's monthly interactive video meeting in cyberspace. This is a masculine place for men that is censorship-free, to increase your performance as well as converse and leverage ideas, and get coaching consultations on how to handle life's issues in a modern world. This is a unique place. This is a discreet place, and it's a place for men. So what are you waiting for? Join the Dragons membership, link below. Make sure to get your own copy of Thor's Dominant Masculine Presence lecture, an hour-long lecture that teaches extremely valuable, simple techniques to improve your dominant masculine presence. You will learn how easily it is to begin building the foundation of your masculine presence and make yourself into a dominant masculine man who knows what he wants and isn't afraid to go after it. So what are you waiting for? Buy now if you want to learn how to become a man who isn't afraid to go after and get what he wants.